Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Spartan Forge. On today's episode, I am joined by Drew Carroll and Lee Ellis of the popular YouTube channel Seek One. These guys are some big buck killers everywhere they go and are just plain out obsessive when it comes to whitetails. So we met at the Spartan Forge Veterans Hunt and had a good conversation surrounding our roles within the new Spartan Forge app, how history with specific deer is key, getting permission to hunt properties, mature buck tendencies, censorship in hunting media, and a lot more with quite a few laughs in between. So this podcast is brought to you by Spartan Forge, and the new app utilizes years of military background and machine learning to pull from millions of data points to accurately predict deer movement, including GPS data, 30 years of weather, academic, and state research. The new app includes GPS mapping with incredible aerial imagery, offline dependability, deer prediction, weather updates, journal entries, and much more. You can use the code EastMeetsWest to save 20% off of the Spartan Forge app at spartanforge.ai. And make sure you go on to the website spartanforge.ai, sign up there so you can save money using that coupon code, and then go to the App Store and download the app and just log in with the information you created online. Tethered is a company that is founded on the principles of educating the hunting community on saddle hunting while creating the most innovative, lightweight, safe products for saddle hunting. They just launched their new Skeletor climbing sticks, and these are meant to be a budget-friendly version with a lot of the similar features of their popular one stick, but at a much lower cost. So these sticks come in, just give you a quick few highlights here. They're folding dual step designs that fold away from the tree, give you more room for your feet when you're climbing, and they weigh 2 pounds a piece, and they're only sold in 4-packs. So right now they are running a Black Friday special. It should still be live by the time you're listening to this, so they're $202 with that deal, or $224.99 normally from that for a 4-pack. So just over $50 a climbing stick, which is obviously, like I said, a good deal for how lightweight these are, and using the same attachment method as the one stick. Everything about them is a pretty cool stick. I'm excited to get my hands on them. All that being said, I have not got to play with them myself yet, but the design and everything and how they stack looks to be pretty awesome. So excited to get to check those out. You can see those at tetherednation.com. And Maven Optics. So Maven is building the highest quality optics at half the price of their competitors through their direct-to-consumer business model. They want to create the best optics for the job, period. Their products are backed with a lifetime no-fault warranty and an incredible customer experience. The RS2 ultralight rifle scope was designed for the all-purpose hunter and features a 2 to 10 times zoom range to cover most eastern and western hunting situations. That RS2 is my recommended scope if you require just precision, but you don't need all the added features of a long-range scope, which makes it perfect for small game, eastern whitetail, as well as western big game if you're looking for an ultralight mountain rifle setup. It only weighs 12 ounces, so it's one of the lightest all-purpose scopes on the market. Used it last year in my caribou hunt in Alaska. Used it for killing my biggest whitetail to date last year in Pennsylvania. And you can check all of those out at mavenbuilt.com. And if you use the coupon code EastMeetsWest-gift, you'll get a free gift with any full-price optics order. And Go Wild is a free social community built by hunters for hunters. You can join me today to get $10 to spend on gear just for setting up your account. You'll keep unlocking Go Wild rewards, and you can now see my complete gear setups under my profile. The app does not censor anything when it comes to hunting. It's meant for hunters and anglers and just anybody that loves the outdoors to be on there. Post what you want. Everybody's there to be supportive. You can use the code EastMeetsWest to save 10% off of all hunting gear, on the website, and that includes tethered products, all the saddle hunting stuff, everything. You can get 10% off of there at all times by using my code East Meets West. So check that out. And yeah, with that being said, I guess the Pennsylvania rifle season had just opened here in PA. It was really good opening weekend for anybody that had a tag in their pocket. I mean, we had snow here in Pennsylvania, and which made it easier to see. My uncle Francie Cherry killed a big 8-point that he was hunting, broke off his G2, but he was hunting that buck all archery season, had an encounter with him, and ended up getting a shot at him in a 3 to 4 year old clear cut opening morning. Just literally stood up from his bed in some thick briars and started moving along, feeding middle of the day, and was able to get a shot at him. My younger cousin Dominic got his first buck, which is a nice 8-point. It was just a really good weekend overall, and I don't remember if I'd mentioned it on last week's, or I wouldn't have mentioned on last week's episode because it just happened. But my dad had, and my dad and my brother and my sister-in-law had all killed bucks out in Montana while they were hunting. My dad killed a giant muley for the area and killed that with his rifle, as well as my brother killed his first mule deer buck, which is a beautiful deer. And then my sister-in-law went out on her own after work and killed a nice whitetail buck as well. So it's been really good few weeks and just November in general here for the family and our camp and everything. And I hope everyone else is having a good time here as well. It's an awesome time of year, and I've been really spending time at camp with everybody and just enjoying it, hearing the stories from my grandfather and some of his buddies and some of the older gentlemen that come into camp. I love listening to those stories. So it's been a good time here, and I'm looking forward to getting out and trying to fill a doe tag and get some more meat in the freezer here coming up. So that's about all of the updates that I have here for this week's episode. I really appreciate you listening, and if you would go over to wherever you listen to it at, Apple Podcasts or wherever, and leave a rating and a review. Helps out so much. Share the podcast with your friends. It definitely helps out. So I really hope you enjoy this episode here with Lee Andrew of Seek One. We're live now.
Okay.
Drew, Lee, welcome to the show.
I'm really trying to work a burp out. Hold on.
Wow. Really great.
It's stuck
great
in my
start
throat
here.
right now.
What is it?
Carry on.
The mix of coffee and bourbon, is that what that does?
Yeah.
Well,
Should be interesting podcast.
yeah, it should be pretty good.
How about every time you talk, you have to take a sip?
Every time I talk. Well, yeah, hopefully then you guys just keep rolling.
We're all gonna shut up and nobody's going to talk.
Yeah, nobody's gonna talk, or we're gonna have to end this in about 30 minutes because it's gonna get a little bit weird at that point. But so, guys, welcome to the show. Lee Ellis, Drew Carroll. Did I pronounce your last name right?
You did.
I did.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Thanks
Awesome.
for having us.
Yeah, it's cool to see you guys come up to Pennsylvania here during the rut.
It's a little different than what we're used to. So-
Have you ever been to Pennsylvania before?
No, first
Really?
time. Yeah, first time. I mean, we haven't hunted anything. I guess you hunted Ohio this year. We're not too far from the Ohio line, but haven't really hunted this terrain before. So
Yeah.
it's definitely different.
Which you're not. You're just
Yeah, we're
sitting
not
in
even
the
hunting.
cabin.
We're listening to people talk about hunting it. So that's
Yeah.
a good learning experience. But
Yeah. So we're up here for the Spartan Forge Veterans Hunt, and where we got, was there three vets that had won the hunt, and there's a bunch of other vets that are here as well that are partaking in the hunt, and then a bunch of the people kind of part of the Spartan Forge team here hanging out at Johnny's Lodge, if you want to call it that.
yeah, I'd call it a lodge.
Yeah.
We honestly didn't know what to expect coming in last night because you guys have been here for, a few days before we got here. And we rolled in late last night, and somehow, you don't find the Rutstache finds you. And within 2 hours of being here, somehow we all ended up with Rutstaches. And things got a little weird, but
it did. That escalated really quickly. Everybody, I don't know. There's like 10 or 11 guys that now have Rutstaches, and I'm going to have to leave before everybody shows up if nobody kills anything, because I told everybody they're guaranteed to kill a buck today, so I don't know.
There's still time.
Yeah.
Did you notice that my mustache is still darker than it was?
Yeah, I do. It actually looks good.
So a little backdrop here. I can't really grow facial hair. It's like something I've always wanted to have, but I'm 31 years old. It ain't happening.
Yeah.
And Beau decided to draw one on my face yesterday. It's on your Instagram.
Yeah.
And it won't really come off 100%. Like all the hair that I do have, it's more of a blonde color now. It's just black now.
Yeah.
So I might consider sharpening my facial hair I do have
more often.
Yeah, and just kind of
put it
blending
as part
it
of
in.
your routine.
Kind of like a Rogaine or Just for Men, kind of deal.
When I was driving here, I was laughing, thinking about like what you were going to look like today with that, and then I didn't even know. I forgot about it when I got here. It's kind of looking now.
Oh, I woke up this morning; it was still all over my face. Yeah, and then I spent 10 minutes with soap and a rag trying to rub it off my face. But
hey, we offered face paint, and you decided
it's a permanent Sharpie marker.
Yeah,
Sharpie marker.
Yeah, it was 100% permanent. I don't. Drew's pulling it off pretty hard.
He looks like a cop.
Yeah, honestly, I might keep it for a while.
I would.
It feels right.
It does.
I've had a rough season. I haven't killed any bucks yet, so I feel like this is a change I need.
Momentum.
I'm telling you, it is. It's
kudos to you by just like subliminally convincing everyone to market for you with this Rutstache deal.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know this was part of your brand until after the fact.
Well, I didn't want to tell you that up front.
Yeah.
Then you'd be like, do I really want to help this guy out? I just met him, and now once you kill something, then it's just going to continually snowball from there. And,
that's true.
And I'll probably retire about 32, so.
I'll say it's been cool to be in camp with these guys. Like I said, Drew and I came up here kind of just blindly. I mean, we didn't bring any hunting equipment. We literally just came to hang out in camp with some of these vets and some of the Spartan Forge guys, and it's been really fun to just like kind of hang out in camp. Yeah. I got to talk with some of the vets last night, and some of their stories are awesome. And some of them are like experienced hunters. Some of them are just getting into it. And so we were able to kind of like, hopefully I was able to share a little bit of wisdom with, some of the newer guys, and I was able to learn some things from some of the older guys. And so it's been pretty cool, even though we're not hunting, just to be here and kind of be in the environment of it all is pretty awesome. There's a very cool group dynamic and just kind of thing that's happening with like the Spartan Forge crew.
Yeah.
So it's just fun to be a part of it.
No, I totally agree with that. And it was cool. Like, I mean, most of us that were here never met each other really before yesterday and stuff. The last night it was like old college buddies getting together, So that went pretty well.
Yeah. No, I feel like I've been talking to all these guys for the last 6 months, like every few days. And this is the first time I've actually met anyone in person. So it's like, just kind of a reunion thing, but still the first time meeting. It was fun. Yeah,
no, it is.
It's a lot of fresh relationships. We just kind of assembled this team. And this is kind of the beginning of all of the beginning of the Spartan Forge and kind of introducing it to the hunting community and things like that. And there's a sense of family. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to, outside of this doing more stuff with you guys, but I'm kind of curious. I know we're not going to touch too much on the Spartan Forge stuff, but while we're talking about it, I am curious to hear your feedback on it with you using it and then us kind of using it back home, like what your 2 cents are that you're seeing with it right now.
Yeah. So Bill had came to me, it's been a year now when he first came to me with this idea and is kind of just the online version of the prediction model and everything. He's like, hey, try it out and see what you think. And it was already late in the season at that point. I think I had filled my tag that next weekend. So I didn't have a whole lot of hunting to be able to mess around with it. But what I did do was compare it up to some trail camera data that I was having and looking at what the prediction was saying for that stuff, and then really utilize that coming into this year. And when I hear deer prediction stuff, I kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
But it has been incredible for me to be able to use in the big wood setting and be able to, I've been using it a lot as far as planning out my hunts. On my opening day buck, I killed my biggest archery buck this year, and I hunted a spot where you typically wouldn't think of hunting. It's, a whitetail rule as far as creek bottoms, the wind swirls in these types of areas. But I went in there, hunted this spot because I knew this buck was feeding in this newer clear cut. I had kind of a general idea where he was bedding out on this point, and I got in between there. The app said it was going to be in the transition type area, and opening day there, I went in and was able to kill him. He came down through the trail at 14 yards, and it was pretty cool. I've had fun messing around with that part of it, and I'm really excited for the mapping side of it. That's been one of the things that I've been working a lot with, just feedback as far as with Bill and everything, and seeing the leafless imagery. We're able to get leaf off imagery for a lot of those places. So it's been really cool to be able to mess around with it and also see it being built from the ground up. I think that's probably
cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, we're all in the Slack channel together and giving feedback, whether it's the marketing side of things, whether it's the app side of things. So that's been pretty sweet.
There's definitely a lot to still be done. Like, there's so much more to come from it.
Yeah,
to be a part of that process is really cool.
Yeah.
So I just killed a deer 2 weeks ago back home in Atlanta, and I hunted this deer 20-something sits, starting from basically opening week in September to the last week in October. And what I was noticing was I also knew a lot of information about this particular buck. I knew where his core area was, and I also knew where his rut range was, just from history with the deer.
Yeah.
I was learning the deer last year with my trail cam. I was hunting him last year with my trail cameras, even though I wasn't hunting him or trying to kill him. And what I was noticing was on those predictions, they were matching up really well. When it was a core area prediction, I was seeing him in his core area, which is where I was hunting.
Yeah.
And then when I was seeing those transition and full range days is when he was showing up on these, what I was considering his rut range, which was, sometimes 2 miles to the north, is when he'd show up on these other cameras. So it was aligning with what the prediction and what I was actually seeing from my cameras hunting this deer. And it was definitely a huge tool of, like, putting me in the right place at the right time kind of thing. So, getting involved in it, I'm like, it sounds awesome, but is the proof the proof's got to be in the pudding.
Yeah.
And so being able to, like, actually experience it, it's freaking awesome. And what Bill's done is pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah.
So
I think the challenge and kind of the purpose of, like, all of us getting together from these different backgrounds, everyone has different perspectives, hunts different terrain. Bill's a super, like, intellectual guy, data-driven guy, and the rest of us are kind of, like, trying to figure out how to present that information in a usable way.
Yeah.
That's the challenge with it, because, I mean, the data is irrefutable. Like, it's GPS color data. It's not observation data. So you have all this data from all over the...
Finally got it out, guys. Finally got it out.
That was only...
I've been choking it down for
11
like 10 minutes.
in.
I lost my train of thought. So...
Sorry.
He was rolling with it, too.
Yeah.
That's a bad timing.
Stream of consciousness here. That literally, like, threw me off my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
You're talking about the data that Bill has and how we're trying to be able to...
Right. So kind of like to Lee's scenario with this last buck, like, we have all this prediction stuff from Spartan Forge. It says core area, transition area, full range, normal pattern or abnormal pattern. Like, that information alone doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. You still have to know the area that you're hunting, and you have to know the deer. So in Lee's scenario, he had history with the deer. He knew where the deer's core area was, and something we talk about all the time is, like, these urban deer and non-urban deer have I guess what we call a loop, especially later October into the rut. They have this, like,
Their
kind of
doe loop.
Yeah, they got all these different spots that they go check over maybe like a week and a half period of time. But then they also have, like, the hub to all those spokes and different spots that they go to that they come back to, like, rest and replenish. And so that, in our opinion, that's the core area. That's where he killed the deer.
Yep.
And so if you know those spots and you're using that prediction data, you can head them off and kind of like full range day, you go out and hunt one of those outskirt spots. Core area day, you go back to where he kind of comes to rest and replenish before going back out.
Yeah. And like you made a really good point too. Like this app this isn't a shortcut by any means. It's help putting another piece to the puzzle together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You gotta understand the area, you gotta understand the deer you're hunting, you gotta do your homework and putting boots on the ground and the scouting and everything else to be able to kind of figure out these things. But it makes so much more sense than when you're able to see that and help you actually plan your hunts out based off of that.
Yeah. I can see it being super helpful for the guys that are going out of state. Maybe they're going to public land where they haven't hunted before.
Yeah.
And they're trying to plan a trip out on a specific set of dates. Like they're taking off work for 4 or 5 days and they need to pick a time to go.
Yep.
And they need to figure out where to hunt very quickly. They're not running cameras, all year round. I can see it helping a whole bunch there.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, definitely. And so one thing that was interesting that you were saying about running that camera and telling how you're hunting the deer with cameras, a year or even more ahead of time. That's before we started talking here. You were discussing your conversation that you had with Johnny Stewart last night and how like a lot of the things that you do and he does are very similar, even though like you're hunting completely different areas at times. And what you just said there is like that's exactly the same way that I look at like when I'm hunting specific deer or if I'm hunting multiple deer or just even an area and learning an area. Like it takes me a couple of years of intel before I feel confident as far as like knowing that it's going to go in and running cameras and stuff. And so do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, history kills deer. That is one of the biggest things for us is learning these deer. I mean, sometimes we're watching deer 3-4 years from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and, we're almost keeping tabs of like, I feel like 100 different deer because we're never really knowing, okay, this deer's going to make it. This deer's not, like that one's off the list. Like we're keeping tabs on so many deer and kind of logging like what they're doing where I'm seeing him at what times of the year. Okay, this is where he's spinning his rut. Like this is where I'm thinking his bedroom area is. And you're kind of just like logging and learning all this information. I can't tell you how many times we've been hunting deer and when they start to hit those transition areas, we're able, because of our history, to actually go and head them off. I mean, sometimes 2, 3, 4 miles away, I'm like, look, he's left his core area. I know where he's going, and I'm ready for him. And then it's just like almost to the week, you can see him, boom, they're back in their, kind of their rut area. The deer bane is the perfect example of that. I had an early season encounter with him in September. This is the year I killed him. And this was also at a time in my hunting career, if you want to call it that, where I was like, I think that was a big turning point for me personally, was that year. I was hunting that deer because I was still struggling as a bow hunter. I didn't have that just like bleeding confidence of just killing deer. Like anything that's in front of me, it's dead. I didn't have that. And I remember in that particular time, I was like wanting to quit. I mean, I remember I had a phone call with a friend of mine. I was like, dude, I just want to quit. So anyways, I had this encounter with this deer in September and I blew the shot opportunity. And deer like that, when something like that happens, they log it in their memory. And he never came back to that place and he left. And I was like, okay, I've totally blown my opportunity in his bedroom area, but I know where he's going. And so I went and headed him off. It was probably 3 miles away. And sure enough, like right in the same, middle of October when I start to see him there, boom, he showed back up. And that was eventually the area that I killed that deer. But yeah, I mean, so history and knowing and learning all these deer, keeping tabs, like constantly learning on what each deer is doing, their behaviors, their tendencies, things like that. I mean, that is one of the biggest advantages we do of being able to get on and kill deer.
So how are you guys logging that data? Like, how are you remembering it?
Dude, all right, so
this is, I'm interested.
I'm a terrible student. Like, I was the worst high school student.
Organizational skills over in this region of the room,
horrible.
Very poor.
You know what? If I were, just from talking to you guys, if I were to guess who was the more organizational one, I'm not going to say it, but yeah.
Well, I'm so offended right now.
No, I doubt it.
I'm just kidding. Not at all. So it's all right. You know, like you have a song you really like and you've heard it. Like maybe it's like a song in middle school. You were like, oh, I freaking love that song. Like maybe Bop Hanson. Maybe that's past your time.
One of your songs back in the day.
I mean, I was probably 4th grade when that song was popular. But I haven't heard that song in over 10 years. I guarantee if you played it right now, I could remember every single word. My deer, like all the deer information, it kind of goes in that same category in my brain somehow. I absorb and learn. Like, I remember every trail cam picture, where it was taken, what year it was taken, like everything. Every trail cam picture, every single deer, it just goes into like this part of my brain where I just like remember everything. And I can tell you every specific detail about that deer. But if you ask me, like, you know, to go learn some math or something, that's going in the portion of the brain that's like the trash can bin.
Yeah,
or something.
I was gonna say that's it's interesting. Like, I definitely have, my head is full of a lot of song lyrics from over the years. You know, I got to figure out a way to be able to
tap into that side,
get into that, and, you know, clear some of that out.
Yeah,
move. You know, I feel like I'm decent with some of that stuff, but there's a lot of details that I have to log information down to be able to, like, I keep a whole Google Sheets of like specific deer and their trail cameras or sightings, the weather, the wind direction, what was going on, where they were coming from, and then like I have it where I can sort it and I can go through and kind of look for different patterns or things that they're doing there.
It's not even my own deer, it's like my friend's deer. That, like, Kendall's got a spot in Nashville. And he sent me a picture this summer of a buck. He's like, look at this new buck. I was like, that buck was there 2 years ago. What are you talking about? It's that deer from 2 years ago. You sent me a picture of it. He's like, for real? I was like, yeah, go back. He digs through. He's like, damn. He's like, okay, You're right. That is the same deer. I was like, duh. And like, I just think some people's brains don't really work that way, but that's kind of how mine is.
Well, I think it's because like the way that we've kind of developed our hunting is like we're going after one specific buck.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like we're running trail cameras all summer long, trying to find the one that just makes us think about it 24/7.
Tingle.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Tingle. That you get that tingling in your loins when you get that one picture.
Yeah.
And it almost, I mean, you're not blocking out all the other deer, but like when you kind of learn that much about one specific deer, you kind of figure out like what do they look like year to year. You know, where are they going to show up at certain times of the year? And it makes you be hyper focused on like the little details and just log those away, I guess. But I'm kind of the same way as him. Like I'm organized in a lot of ways, but I don't have like a journal or anything like that or a Excel sheet as far as like getting pictures of a 2-year-old buck and be like, okay, in 5 years from now, I've got all this information on him.
See, I guess I don't start that early.
Yeah.
Usually I start when, like, as far as actual logging data, when I get to the point where I want to kill them or it's like getting pretty close. Like the deer that I killed this year, I only started hunting the area last year, but I noticed from like, I basically picked like the top 5 bucks that I wanted to hunt or were getting close to that point where I really wanted to shoot, and I logged all the data from them because otherwise I wouldn't be able to keep up if I was trying to log all the data from, you know, I run 35 cameras. You guys might run even more than that, but it's just like I couldn't keep up with it. But I had noticed that he was in early season. He was, at least in the area that I was hunting, he was patternable in early season and late season, which is super rare for like a big woods deer. But there was the fresh logging cut that he just loved, basically a food plot of the big woods. So, you know, he liked that type of stuff, and I was able to log that data and go back to it and figure out some of those different things with it. But like, I don't know, for me, writing that stuff down helps so much. I definitely envy the memory, I guess.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we're missing stuff. Like we could be going back to the 2-year-olds and the 3-year-olds that you can tell at that age a lot of times what they're going to turn into. Like if a deer has potential, and I'm sure if we were keeping detailed notes on, you know, where we're getting pictures of these deer, what the weather's looking like, that like when we get those daylight pictures, we'd be building some patterns that would pay off in the future. So, I mean, that's something that we probably will start doing. I know Spartan Forge has a journal function built in,
That's one of my favorite features, obviously, by what I'm talking about here, but I love that feature.
And there's talk about eventually kind of incorporating that with cellular trail cameras to where it automatically kind of logs that information.
Yep.
And I mean, you can't catch everything if you're just trying to store it in your brain. Like, especially when you get so hyper focused on one deer, you kind of shut out everything else that's going on. Like, for example, Lee, I don't know how many spots of permission Lee has in Atlanta.
A few.
But it's like well over 100. That's probably like a very low number.
I think it's several hundred.
Several hundred. And if he finds that one buck that he's going to go hunt, like, he doesn't even put cameras out at the other spots. So there's so many bucks that he gets pictures of that he just kind of doesn't even think about because he finds this one buck that's the 180, 190 or whatever that he's just like, all right, all of my effort's going into that one deer because that's what it takes to kill these 6, 7, 8-year-old deer.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. And first of all, that many properties is ridiculous to try to. How many of them are your sugar mamas that you had to get in that? Or don't you want to talk
about my
said we're not giving away the secrets.
Tactics.
Yeah, we're not going to talk. You have to join your online course to find out those permission tactics, right?
That's right.
But no, it's interesting. Like, I don't know. You guys are a little bit different than me from the standpoint. I'm not at the point in my hunting career where I'm all or nothing on a specific deer. I just haven't got to that point where I can, dude,
it's high risk, high reward.
It is very high risk, high reward. And I've been actually trying to get my dad to do that this year on a specific deer, and he's not that way either. Like, basically the way I've looked at deer is like, I'll hunt a specific deer and I'll focus on that, but I'll kill another deer that, that you can, but I'm hunting based off of these other, type tactics. But
I've never done that.
Really?
Never.
I don't think I have either.
And
but it's different though. Like, where we're hunting, especially nowadays with how much pressure there is, there's not a lot of mature deer out there. So it's not like you're going to be hunting one mature buck, your target buck, and then you're going to see another 150, 160 walk by randomly.
Yeah.
I mean, it could definitely happen.
Yeah, but it's not very common.
I don't think I'd shoot it. It's not like, as crazy as that sounds. I mean, obviously if it's like a giant, I'm going to, no brainer, but like Drew kind of always makes fun of me a little bit for my reactions, like when we're watching back footage and stuff. And those are my reactions when I shoot a deer are not faked. They're not exaggerated. It is literally just like my raw emotion.
Yeah.
And for me, like, it's because I've put so much energy into that specific animal. You're seeing all of that just kind of unleashing of that joy, that emotion, that payoff, high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
If that buck gets hit by a car, that whole story, that 2 months of really years that have gone into that deer and filming and all this stuff, like, kind of goes out the window.
Yeah.
And that's always in the back of your mind. Like, until it happens, there's always that, like, what if someone else gets him, he gets hit by a car? What if this story never happens? And so, like, when I've just put all of my energy into a deer, a specific deer that I'm targeting, I don't care about any other deer. And when it happens for that deer, like, that specific one I'm after, it's just like this. There's so much raw emotion that just comes pouring out of me of just like the joy of outsmarting that animal and having it happen. Like, I've put my soul into that deer, and not, like I've done it happens very, very rarely, but I've done it where, I get a spot or I go hunt a fresh place, buck comes in, I don't have much history with him, I shoot him and I'm excited, but I'm not near the level of excited if it's like one I've got a lot of history with and it was my total focus on that deer and I pulled it off. Like, it's a whole different level of a rush for me.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. Like, that deer that I killed this year, that was like that moment where that was the one I was targeting, that buck, and it was just like through the roof. Just I couldn't, almost couldn't believe it that opening day that happened. Typically, like, most of my strategy and most of everyone else is in the big woods is the rut, because there isn't really, a lot of the areas even that I hunt don't even have oak trees. There's not even acorns. It's mostly browse type food, so it's hard to concentrate. So, hunting during the rut, it's a little bit more difficult as far as focusing on a specific deer. And in areas like here, which you guys saw something different when you said you saw deer all over the road, but it's relatively low deer density, believe it or not. And the bucks travel a lot to go to find does, and to be able to do that. So that's why, like, if I'm hunting a specific deer, like during the rut, why there's a potential for another one that I've never even seen before to come through, because typically I'm hunting, during the rut, some of those doe bedding areas that historically he has visited, or he's, doing that type of.
And I'll tell you, like, that style of hunting it's not the right, like, I'm not saying that's the right way. That's the only way.
Yeah.
I get that.
To me, that's just my personal addiction.
It's got trade-offs for sure. I was actually thinking about this recently, because as we're starting to grow, we're getting more opportunities. We're having people reach out from different states. Like, I went on my first elk hunt this year. Like, I love going and hunting new places. But when you're going to new places, like, the experience, you're going for the experience, hunting new terrain, new types of animals, if it's a new species or just like a different personality of whitetail. But you're almost losing that side that Lee's talking about, where you're super hyper focused on this one deer, this one story, and you get so invested in that. It is really high risk, high reward.
Yeah,
but it's a trade off, because, like, I want to do both. I want to go hunt these really cool places and not sit in someone's backyard for the rest of my life. But I also don't ever see myself, like, losing that side of it, the urban stuff, the chasing one deer.
Yeah. Well, and I know what's really cool about that, and is, like, when you're talking about having more opportunities and be able to go places, like, everyone thinks that I'm completely nuts for not wanting to leave Pennsylvania until I kill. I literally won't leave the state until I kill a buck. Last year, I didn't go to any other states for whitetails because it took me all the way until December to kill. But I love when I can learn an area so much and learn the deer and hunt like you guys are talking about. And at the same token, I've also really grown to love just going to a new area without, like, specific expectations like that, and just hunting it for what it was. Like, this year I went to New York for the first time ever. I went up there in one day and I shot a small 7-point that was up there off the ground, spot and stock, just kind of cruising these ridges. And that was a blast. It was just it was like different.
No stress.
There was no stress.
That's fun
whatever
hunting.
you kill.
It's fun hunting.
Yeah,
it is.
Really fun.
Chasing one buck is extremely stressful.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
And it's actually a lot of the times it's not fun.
Yeah.
Dude,
Most of the time it's not.
A lot of times, yeah, I mean, you're losing sleep. Like, it's super stressful.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, my first time hunting kind of away from that style was when we hunted with the hunting public last year from the boat, doing the bebopping around to a bunch of just public land and stuff. And I had no expectation. It's like, if a deer comes in front of you and you want him, give him the beans. Like, send the arrow. And I had, we shot some does and stuff, and I had this buck come in front of me, and I still got crazy excited about shooting him, and he was probably a 120-inch deer. But I had no history with him. It was just, like, such a cool experience. No expectation, no pressure. It's just like, hey, if a buck shows up and you want him, let him have it. And that's exactly what happened. And it was, like, one of my most memorable hunts I've been on. And it was just, like, fun. I remember telling Aaron and telling Drew, I was like, this was just fun.
Yeah.
To go out and just hunt. Like, don't worry about all that. Just hunt. Like, it was really fun. So there's definitely two styles. I'm not saying one way is right, one way is wrong. Like, whatever gets you personally really excited to go hunt, like, go do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's the same, like, when I went to New York, I literally drove up there with expectations, and my buddy said to me, he's like, what are you trying to shoot up there? I told him, I said, future 120. He started laughing. He's like, really? I'm like, I said, I'm just going up there. I want to shoot a buck. I don't really care what it is. I said, I might pass on deer, I might not. It's going to be situational and kind of and that's fun too, and that's not the way I typically hunt in Pennsylvania, because it's just, it's different types of fun and what kind of challenges,
Yeah. I think there's also a lot to be said for, like, how you cut your teeth getting into hunting. So if you cut your teeth on big woods, public land in Pennsylvania, like, you're always going to be drawn to that style.
Yeah.
Because you develop that style for yourself on your own, just like we did in the urban stuff. And, even if we do start branching out, like that's our roots. We're always going to be going back to our roots. Because that's what got us here in the first place. So, but I totally agree. Like, whatever style you like, whatever is, accessible to you, go do it.
Yeah, and it's like don't mimic Drew's style, don't mimic Lee's style, don't mimic my style. Find your own. Maybe you find something that Lee says that's like, oh, maybe I'll try that and I like doing that, or something Beau says or Drew says, but everyone's got to have their own style. Like like when I talk to a lot of very successful hunters like you guys, and I always pull something from it that I can apply to my own thing, but I don't try to copy, one person or another. It's just always, just kind of molding that, and you'll eventually start to see a lot of crossovers between people, no matter where they hunt, when they're successful or whatever that is.
And my addiction is not necessarily limited to like suburban stuff. It's more just like knocking on doors and getting access to places that I just didn't have before, seeing what's there. I mean, it could be 1 acre, it could be 1,000 acres. Like it doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Yeah.
Just that, like, I'm going out, I'm gonna get some new spots, I'm gonna see what's around, like, and you never know what experience and what journey you're gonna go down by, getting access, having the right conversation at the right time with some homeowner that's got acreage behind their house, and you go down this like amazing journey that just kind of brings your passion out of you, and so I wouldn't necessarily say like Drew and I are strictly urban. Like it's really anywhere that we can knock on a door and get access to hunt. We got permission Drew had 800 acres back home in Atlanta. He killed a 180-inch deer off of it. And then I've killed a deer on 1 acre and kind of like everywhere in between. So it's not specific to just urban.
Yeah. And then that thought of like what could possibly happen. Like that's like the most exciting part. And I don't know about for you guys, and I'd be curious to hear your opinion, but like for me, I was just talking to my cousin about it the other day. It's like I like the scouting and the strategizing and the planning and everything leading up to it way more than I do actually sitting in
a stand for 4 hours.
Like like 10 times over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And there's also a sadness, like when it's over too. Like if you kill that deer, like there's 100% of sadness where it's like, oh, yeah, it's over now. Like I'm not going to wake up and see, be anxious to like check my cameras and see if he's shown up like tonight, and I can go, get after him this afternoon. Like there's definitely like, I think it's just a super high level of respect for these deer that like, there's a sadness amidst all of the excitement when it does happen. But yeah, no, to your point, like that getting a new spot, putting a new camera out in a new place, like that anticipation is like the biggest draw.
It's like the exploratory spirit. Like you're just going, and it's the feeling that you have the ability to get permission to hunt in any area that you want. And if you have a spot that you shoot a buck off of and it runs dry, like there's not a shooter there the next year, go to the next spot.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere you want if you can talk to landowners and get permission.
And that's such a skill that you guys have, and people like you that do that and asking permission and stuff. Like I remember when I was in college trying to go asking for permission to hunt different farms and stuff. I freaking hated it.
It sucks. So he likes it. I hate it.
I love it.
It's a personality thing.
I'll gobble it down. I'm knocking 100 doors in a day. Well, it doesn't bother me.
Really?
I like talking to people. I mean, I really do. And some of the homeowners I've gotten permission from are like good friends now, like close friends. And I have good relationships with a lot of these people. And so, that's a big part of it for me is just interacting with people. I've been doing it for 16 years. So I started doing it when I was 15, same with Drew. And to me, it's just nothing to go knock on a door. But I have friends that are terrified. Like they're like, oh, what do I say? Will you go knock for me? Like, no, you can do it. You're a big boy. You can do it. And but there's I think it's just like a mental block people put in their head of they're hyping it up to be like this huge deal. It's like, dude, you're just having a conversation with someone. It's not a big deal.
What's the worst that could happen?
Shoot you.
Or they call it,
because that almost happened to me last year. But That's a rare thing.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
I was talking to Tony Treach on the podcast, and he hunts a lot of Kansas and knocks on a lot of doors. And he was saying last year he had a guy saying that he ever comes on his property again, even knock on the door, that he'd be burying him on the property. He's like,
I had a lady say that
We
to
have
me.
people say that a lot, but he actually had it happen to him.
Well, so there's two incidences that I'll refer to.
God.
In picking up from your conversation, I actually had a lady say the same thing. She didn't say that she'd bury me in the hills or whatever, but she said that she would shoot me dead if she ever saw me again in her yard. And I was like, I'm pretty not combative, but I'm going to push you. If you're a homeowner and you say no, I'm going to be like, why?
Yeah.
If you tell me you're going to kill me, I'm going to be like, why? And that's what I did with her. I was like, hold on. Let's whoa, pump the brakes. You just said you're going to kill me. I was like, what are you going to tell my mom? What are you going to tell my dad? That you killed me because I was going to hunt a deer?
Because I was like,
lady, this is ridiculous. I was like, why don't we just take a step back here and calm down? I was like, you're acting crazy. And she was like, you know what, you're right. I was like, holy crap, that worked.
Wow.
And so anyways.
Did you guys have coffee or anything?
No. I mean, we kept we kept talking.
Well,
talking.
He got permission.
I did get permission from her. I got hunting permission. So I turned it from she's going to kill me to, yeah, you can hunt here. But it just,
Wow.
Sometimes pushing people a little bit when it's like you're acting like a crazy person. The other incidents I'll tell you about this one was actually really, really bad, really dangerous. I wasn't even asking a deer hunt. I was knocking on the door. I shed hunt like crazy in the springtime. Yeah. It's a 365-day-a-year deal for us when we're like tracking deer, learning deer. I mean, I don't think about anything else. And any kind of piece of the puzzle you can put together, whether it's in March, February, anything you can figure out, it's going to help you kill that deer in the fall. I do a ton of shed hunting. I love shed hunting. I knock on a ton of doors. 99% of people have no problem with you shed hunting. They're just like, sure, go ahead. No problem. And I tell them I give them to my mom for her birthday. Her birthday's in end of February, and usually I find a bunch of sheds for her, and she decorates her house with them or whatever. So I tell them that, and they're like, "Go ahead, knock yourself out, no problem." So I go to knock on this door, and my friend lived next door. So I parked at his house. I walk to this person's house. I knock on the door, and I see him inside. They see me walk up, and knock on the door, nothing. Well, I come up a second time. I was just making sure that they heard me. Knock, knock, knock. I walk back, no answer. I'm like, all right, well, they just, I could tell they were kind of elderly. I was like, they don't want to answer. So I go back to the truck. I turn back around 5 minutes later, 2 cop cars in the driveway. I was like, oh boy, here we go. Walk back over there, and I was like, I'm assuming you called about me. Can I come on over? And they're like, yeah, come on over. What was funny was one of the cops was like, dude, I know, I love your YouTube videos. And he's like, I got into urban hunting in my backyard because I saw y'all's stuff. And that was kind of funny. So anyways, we go talk to this homeowner, and he tells me that when I went and knocked on the door the second time, that he had a handgun. He's like, Sonny, you couldn't see me, but the second time you knocked on my door, he's like, I had a handgun pointed at you, and he's like, I was shaking, and my finger was on the trigger, and I was back and forth in my mind of whether or not I should pull that trigger. And the same thing, I got pissed off at him. The cops got pissed off at him. I did the same thing. I was like, what are you going to tell my parents if you shot me dead on your front porch? I could have been like, hey, I'm a neighbor. I ran out of milk. Can I have a cup of milk? I'm trying to make a cake.
That's a weird example.
Well,
but
I mean, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I could just be a neighbor needing help. You're going to shoot me? And so, yeah, I mean, it's a rare thing, but.
Yeah, you don't look like an aggressive person.
He said that. He was like, especially looking the way you look like right now. I was like, dude, what are you smoking? I'm like, I'm wearing gym shorts and a T-shirt.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So if you're trying to get into the door knocking game, expect 1 out of 10,000 doors to get a gun pulled on you.
Yeah.
Because it's probably been close
finger
to
on the trigger. It's just yeah. You got to live a little bit.
To be honest with you, I kind of wish you'd clip me.
Just a little bit.
Just wing me on my shoulder.
Yeah.
This podcast would be way more interesting if I was telling you about how I got shot knocking on doors, and I could show you the scar and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool. If you had a body cam
maybe
on
we can stage that.
Stage it.
I'm gonna get a fake scar on my shoulder.
What, you knock on Johnny's door of his camp here, and
he might shoot you, honestly.
Yeah.
No, Johnny, it don't matter who knock on his door. Hey, come on in. He'll have everybody in here talking.
I like Johnny a lot. I know you said you've had him on your podcast a handful of times, so I'm sure a lot of people listening know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I was telling you earlier. He's a big woods guy. I mean, public land, and but he's also a guy that knows deer. I mean, he just knows deer.
Yeah.
And he's done it all. He's done the smaller track, the urban stuff, the big wood stuff, and he and I hit it off because, like, we're both obviously obsessed with this stuff, mature bucks, and it was interesting that, like, a lot of the tactics that we do back home and more of your urban type stuff was totally in line with stuff that he's doing here in the big wood stuff. And I think the overwhelming point is that, like, a mature buck is a mature buck.
Yeah.
They have the same instincts. They have the same habits, the same just survival.
They don't want to die.
Yeah. Instincts
doesn't matter where
built
they are.
into them. And it's amazing to see the similarities no matter what their environment is.
Yeah.
That was a really cool thing to connect with him on.
Yeah, no, that's I'm glad that I saw you guys talking for a while in here last night, and he has so much information in his head, and he's been so many places. Like you're talking about like landowners. So Johnny used to live out of his Jeep when he'd go to different places, and he was out in Iowa. He'd go out there because he could get a tag every year if he hunted the late season when nobody wanted to be out there. So he'd go out and he'd sleep in his Jeep when it was cold as hell and go out and hunt these places. Well, this landowner I don't know if he told you this story or not, but this landowner, this old farmer, saw his Jeep parked right next to his property on the public land piece all the time and started talking to him. Now, Johnny spends Christmas a lot of times with this guy. He's like 80-some years old. Now he stays at his house.
Yeah.
And, and he lets him hunt the property if he wants. And typically Johnny still goes and hunts at the places that he has. And, like, he goes and helps the landowner out and helps him with his equipment and whatever he needs. And Johnny's just such a good dude, and he just knows deer. But
yeah, he does. I mean, Drew and I went and just followed him around today for a few hours, just kind of scouting around. And I was just like, I'm just going to shut up and listen to him.
Yeah. There's very few guys that you talk, like we talk to a lot of hardcore hunters, but Johnny is the kind of guy that's so infatuated with it. He spent so much time doing it. His mindset is like 24/7, 365, it's hunting. And when he starts telling a story about a buck that he killed or just a hunting experience in general, like he takes you back to, like, you feel like you're there. He has like this photographic memory of everything that happened like 15 years ago on one of these bucks that we're looking at on the wall right here.
Yeah.
And like, I love people that can tell stories like that. I don't have that myself. Like, I don't remember details like that, but guys that can tell stories like that where they remember so much about the hunt is so cool.
Just
to me.
sucks you in.
And it's like, if they can remember it well enough to tell the story like that, then they sure as crap can remember it to kind of log this information in their minds and use that as an advantage for the next hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard him tell stories about like where, and he's told him on the podcast before, where he heard a specific deer cough, and
that's what he was telling us.
Was he telling you a story about the
story?
Yeah,
like things like, and the thing about Johnny is he hasn't been influenced by like any media or like any like he just it's what Johnny's learned from his personal experiences is what he applies, and like I think that's awesome. Like it's like similar to I'd say like the things that when I listen to my dad or I follow my dad around hunting in the woods, because he doesn't have any other influence other than what he knows and what he does, and I love listening to people like that, and it's super cool.
Yeah, because you learn from experience. And you're not just regurgitating what other people said.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like if you do it that way, there's unique things that you learn about these animals. Like when Johnny was walking us around today and kind of talking about like how he scouts and kind of what he's figured out about these deer. There's the first layer of knowing the deer's tendencies that you can find, you can read online, you can hear on podcasts and stuff. But then you take it like another couple steps farther. And you get so deep into these deer's habits where it's almost like it sounds weird when you're talking about it, because for someone that like isn't that hardcore into hunting, they're like, there's no way you figured that out about these deer. Like, that's so unique to each specific deer. But like, when you spend that much time with them and you learn their tendencies, whether it's what they're eating or what they're doing certain times of year, the areas that they're going to avoid hunting pressure, like, it's so cool to hear that different people's experiences in these different habitats.
Yeah.
That spend so much time with these deer. So
there
he's
was
one of those guys.
There was two things I think in particular that kind of stood out in our conversation last night. And one of them was how sometimes these mature bucks will get in such a small area that's just their kingdom, their zone, their bedroom. And whether that is in an urban environment or a place where he has 100,000 acres to roam, they find that little area that's just theirs. They spend a ton of their time in that little area. And it's like they're not branching outside of that very often. That some of these old, smart deer that just sometimes are so hard to kill, you almost have to infiltrate that little itty-bitty place that they are just like so in tune with. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes some of these older deer so hard to kill. Mm-hmm. And how even on big woods that these mature bucks will find really small areas. Yeah. Same thing. And again, it's just how these deer are ingrained. I think it's in their DNA. And the same thing happens back in the urban stuff. Like, you can look on a map and some of the big woods in urban places are some of the worst places because, maybe there's a ton of human foot traffic in there. It may be hunted to death. And some of the best places we found are little itty bitty nooks and crannies that this deer has just never, ever been messed with.
Yeah.
That he's just like, they're very, very good at finding those places where they're left alone. Mm-hmm. And that's like sometimes so hard to find. But when you do, it changes everything. When you finally found that deer's kind of lair, like when you've uncovered his secret almost.
And it's so hard to explain on something like here, like on a podcast or even in videos because they don't look the same all the time. It's just like,
yeah.
I was on a podcast with Johnny. We were both on Wired to Hunt and Mark was interviewing both of us about this type area. And Johnny was talking, he literally said nooks and crannies, like these areas where they're at, and and Mark was asking him to describe it, and Johnny's like, it's hard to describe some of these areas. Like, you just have to see it, and
because every deer is just different.
Yeah,
and most of the time it's like areas that they don't have any like distinctive features. Mm-hmm. Because the places that do have distinctive features, that's where the other hunters go.
Yeah, because they know the information or it's out there. It's not.
It's the overlooked spots that you have to spend 50 hours looking at a map, and then it's like, oh wow, I didn't see that before.
Yeah, and then once you get in there, and then you see it, and you're like, oh, there's this little patch of this brush that's here, whatever it might be that makes it.
And I think every buck's life experience is different, and so that's what almost helps them form these little safe pockets. I don't think it's okay, there's this safe pocket on this 1,000 acres. There's always a giant deer in there every single year. It may be this one specific deer's little pocket, but then the next year, if that deer got killed, this dominant mature buck in there may have a different little pocket somewhere else. And it's just when they're living their life from the time they are born to the time that they die, they are constantly just in their mind, okay, I've never, ever been messed with here. I'm going to favor this place. It's been my retreat. And that retreat may be different for each animal just based on their life experiences. Maybe that buck encountered a human in this little pocket here, and so he tends to avoid that because that happened to him before. And, he favors kind of this other area. There's no set oh, this pocket right here, that's the pocket. It's just every deer's different. Their behaviors are different, all of that.
There's no shortcut to finding those spots. Yeah. Boots on the ground.
Every deer's
running
different.
Cameras.
No, and it's not no matter how experienced you are, say Drew or Lee, you could go into an urban area or big woods or wherever it is, and you're not going to go in there the first time and be like, this is where the biggest deer is living at. It takes time of figuring that out,
The other thing, the point number two that he and I were just oh, that happens too, just kind of just going at it was, I was telling him the story about a deer that I killed that I named Lefty. He was 193 inches and had 6 years of history, trail camera history with this deer. And I had an area that was definitely his core area. He favored this place. I mean, he spent a ton of time there, but it was the constant back and forth cat and mouse. Like every time I'm in there, he's nowhere to be seen. When I'm gone, comes through no problem. And I hunted that deer. Again, we're always learning from every hunting experience we're having, every deer we're at. Like we've not reached, I don't think you ever as a hunter reach that point where you're like, I got it all figured out.
No.
You're constantly learning. You're constantly making mistakes, but you want to learn from those mistakes. And so I was hunting this deer. I had hunted him 50 sits in one season, and starting from September all the way to the end of January. And what I had figured out, and it took me a long time to figure this out, was that he had actually patterned exactly where I was parking my car and exactly where I was walking in. He knew my exact trail and everything. And it's like these deer are constantly trying to pattern you. And they know the difference. He and I went on about the scent stuff for an hour, about how I think one of the common misconceptions is that with urban hunting, it's like, well, they don't really care about human scent. And it's like, that's not true at all, because they know the difference from, well, I'm smelling a human, but it's coming from that house. That's totally normal. They know the difference in that. And when they're smelling a human and it's in their territory and they
walk
can't
outside of the yard
find
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's a totally different deal. And that's what the cat and mouse thing has happened on so many of these big bucks, is like they're smelling us or patterning us, figuring out where we're coming in, or they're getting downwind of where they know we're at, and we're not seeing them, but they're smelling us going the other way. I mean, dude, it's happened so many times. Anyways, I could go on about the scent stuff forever. That's probably a whole different podcast, but specific to this deer, he had patterned where I was parking my truck and walking in, and he was bedding down right there, like literally exactly right there where I was parking and walking in. So every single time I was going in there, he knew it. And when I'd finally figured that out, this homeowner was like, gave me permission. She was like, I just want you to access from the back. I don't want you kind of out of sight, out of mind. So that's why I was kind of having to force to come in at the same place every time. I went over to her and I was like, hey, I think these deer kind of have me patterned. I was like, can I just a couple times access from your side and the front side of the property? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. So I brushed in a ground blind, stayed out of there. And when he was back in there, I slipped in the evening and took one sit and I killed him from accessing a different place. And he came from where I was parking was exactly where he was bedded. That's where he got up and came into me.
After like 3 years of hunting this deer.
Dude, so many years, so many sits. And it took one sit changing my access that threw this deer a curveball where he was like, no, coast is clear. This is where he comes in at. He hadn't come in. I'm good. And killed that deer.
Oh.
And he was, dude, Johnny was just on the edge. He was eating it up. And he was like,
yeah.
oh, yeah. So, yeah, it was.
What's crazy about that is like that deer could have bedded in a ton of different spots in that block of woods.
Oh, yeah.
Like he could have been up on top of a hill where he could see a lot of stuff. But instead he decided to bed in the danger zone, but within view of where you're walking in.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we walk in, he leaves. But when Johnny was kind of showing us around today, he was talking about like, yeah, we see these deer bedded in these laydowns off the side of the road all the time. And I was thinking in my head, like, I guarantee you they're bedded there because they're seeing these trucks roll in.
Keep a tab
and they're
on
watching when someone's coming in to hunt. And when they see someone coming in to hunt, they're like, I'm not getting up. Like someone's back here. But if they're like bedded down way back in the woods, they're not seeing that happen. They're not seeing the access, so they can't keep tabs on it.
And when I was parking in that spot and accessing it, dude, I was seeing 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, like no problem.
Yeah.
But that's a totally different deer than a 6+-year-old. It's a night and day difference in that animal.
Yeah. The thing about access trails and like how that, you're talking about that in an urban environment, but like here we find it so much where either next to the roads or like a lot of the places will have gated roads that go back. Mm-hmm. And along those spots, I'll find, beds, or I actually had a specific deer that I was hunting for 4 years that I'd kind of figured out his little home area watched this trail that would come in and I didn't realize that for a long time until he had dropped his shed in December and it was like literally right after rifle season ended, and it was 50 yards from that trail, and it was in a relatively open spot that just had a log where he could, and I actually got down in the bed and kind of figured like how he'd be sitting there, and he'd be still covered away from it, a place I wouldn't even think about looking. It wasn't your traditional buck bedding location as I would see a normal deer. It was just a whole different animal is how they looked at it. And it's absolutely incredible when you see that.
You just can't give them enough credit for how smart they are. Like, we come up with these crazy ideas of like, well, maybe he's seeing us do this or thinking that. It's like, no, he's just a deer. He's just an animal. There's no way he's that smart.
Yeah.
But they are. Like, it's so crazy how many different ways they can think and use the environment against you. Like, that is their territory. They have one goal in life, and it's to survive.
Yeah.
And they're damn good at it.
You know what I want you guys to do and think about is you guys should come up in the spring next year and spend some time scouting. So then you have some knowledge of the area and, run some cameras or something. You get a little bit of that, targeting on it. And I want you to come up here and hunt at some point in the fall. I think it would be really cool to see, because like you said, mature deer, to see your guys, how you would hunt an area like this, just based off of using the knowledge that you've had and just seeing an area and going into. I think it would be pretty cool, like, and not just coming in blind for a week to hunt or 3 or 4 days, but coming up and spending 3 days scouting, in the springtime and, looking for shed antlers and kind of understand the area, maybe setting some cameras up or something. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm in. That'd be fun. And as soon as we get up here and we're seeing these deer and stuff, I'm like, gosh, I can't believe I didn't bring my bow.
Yeah.
So I think next year we're for sure.
Yeah, you saw.
Oh, I saw a 150-inch deer just driving into town last night.
I know. I was like, that's incredible.
I mean, it looked fake. It looked like one of those like DNR just put this like gigantic
like
buck.
A robotic.
Yeah, it totally looked like that.
For the road
right on the side of the road.
I was like, there's no way this is real. But it was real. I'm telling you, he was every bit of 150.
That's
easily.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, as similar as mature deer's tendencies are across the country, there's still obviously a big learning curve if you're hunting different areas. Like, the terrain, how they use the terrain for bedding and for traveling, the food sources, like all that stuff would be foreign to us coming to an area like this. So, I mean, it's maybe it translates 50% the knowledge that we have, and then the rest of it you got to figure out as you kind of get familiar with the areas.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, whitetails have one thing on their mind, and it's surviving, avoiding hunting pressure, eating and breeding, and that's it.
Yeah, and we can overcomplicate it a lot of times, but yeah, it's very, very true. And one thing, but I realized that I didn't want to stop you guys as we started rolling with this podcast, but I never did like very good on the whole introduction thing. As we started going into it, but we started getting so into deer right off the bat.
No one has any idea who the heck we are.
We're just I thought about that as we were talking. I was like, I literally just gave the guys names, and that was kind of it. So if you guys are cool with it, kind of transition, just going back to who you guys are and what you got going on. Drew, do you want to kind of start off a little bit?
Yeah. How far do you want me to take it back?
So just give a little bit of background on you personally, and then kind of what you guys have going on with Seek One, and kind of like how it started and where it started, how it started, and go from there.
Yeah. So Lee and I went to high school together. That's kind of how we got to know each other. My family has always been a hunting family. Not like, I wouldn't say they're a hardcore hunting family. Like, no one else in my family is into it as I am, but I've always had either like a family farm or a lease or something to go to. Kind of grew up rifle hunting. I think I started when I was maybe like 10, so it wasn't like something that I did every weekend. Lee was kind of the opposite. No one else in his family hunts, and we kind of connected for the first time on the bass fishing side. There was a bunch of guys in our class that loved bass fishing. We'd do like these tournaments on the weekends and stuff, and we were fishing a pond like a neighborhood pond by my parents' house back in, I don't know what, we were freshmen in high school or something like that. And I had minimal hunting experience. He had little to no hunting experience. And
none. The answer is none.
Yeah,
no hunting experience,
no hunting
whatsoever.
experience. And we started seeing like these trails and these rubs and scrapes behind this pond. And we were like, or I guess I was like, Lee, this is, from what I've experienced in my limited experience, this is not normal whatsoever. There's rubs everywhere. There's freaking cow paths through this little creek bottom. I was like, we need to check this out. Like, we need to figure out what's going on back here. And at the time, we knew nobody that hunted in the suburbs. Really knew nothing about bow hunting, period.
I didn't know what a rub was.
Yeah.
Drew had to tell me what a rub was.
And so we
he still does, right?
I still haven't figured that out yet.
rub, scrape, same thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was that year or the following year. We're like, okay, we're gonna buy. I think we started with the crossbows, like I guess most people do. And I went and found. I went on like the tax assessor website to find property lines, and found the person that owned like a little 6-acre chunk of this creek bottom. Knocked on their door. My mom had to drive me there because I was 15 at the time. Dropped me off, knocked on the door, obviously stumbling over my words, had no clue what to say.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I think you have deer in your backyard. Can I hunt them? Something like that. And they were like, oh, I don't know if that's legal. Like, let me figure it out, come back. It took me like 3 or 4 times coming back to that one house to finally annoy them enough to be like, fine, like go back there, hunt.
Yeah.
Like go for it, whatever. And we hunted that one property, 6 acres for 3-4 years before we kind of like started branching out. They actually just sold the place. I went by there a month ago and they were literally moving out when I went in there. But so we literally cut our teeth on this property, and with everyone that's like become successful in whatever business or industry, there's so many things that have to go right, like so many variables. And I feel like that variable of landing on this one property for Lee and I was a huge reason that we've gotten to kind of where we are right now. Because if there was one spot that we could go back to and hunt 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when there was like very little pressure, that would be the spot. Even though we've been all over Atlanta and seen all these different spots, different pockets of genetics, that spot was absolutely ridiculous. And so Lee ended up killing, I killed the first buck out of there. It was a 173 inch, like 13 pointer, 300-pound deer, and had no freaking clue what I had shot.
And you killed that when you were in high school, or
that was like
freshman year in college.
Freshman year in college, yeah, it was like 2 or 3 years into it. Yeah, we floundered in there for about 2 or 3 years. Like no idea.
He would have been 193 if you had that mustache back then.
You're probably dang right. I probably would have killed him the first year, honestly.
We couldn't grow mustaches back. I still can't grow one, but you get the concept.
Yeah.
So I killed that deer, and then Lee went on like a 4 or 5 year streak where he was laying them down like 140s, 150s every year. And he was the first one to kind of figure out like, okay, we've got this place. It's a creek bottom coming off the river. There's hardwood ridges on both sides, privet in the bottom. This isn't the only place that this is going on here in Atlanta. And so he started going out and finding similar areas, kind of starting on the street that we were on, like same within a square mile, and started branching out from there, knocking on doors and figuring out like this, we can replicate this across the entire city. And so that's just kind of snowballed into knocking on like a ridiculous number of doors every year. Like if I said a number, I don't think people would believe it, but 500 to 1,000 doors every summer, and just kind of like perfecting this permission getting craft and learning where these bucks live, where they are different times a year. And
no, but and I think, I would think people would believe it because, like, I don't know, what I see in people like that are super successful or super passionate in something that they're in, they do things that sound crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They are.
Yeah.
They're 100% freak. They're nuts. But like, that's what you guys did, and it's pretty obvious how that's been working out.
Yeah. So I mean, for the first 5-6 years that we were knocking on doors, I mean, we'd get maybe one yes out of 100 door knocks.
Yeah, low ratio for sure.
Like very, very low ratio, very discouraging. Just flailing all over the place on people's front doorsteps, basically, just spewing words. And it just kind of kept getting better and better, and we kind of figured out what to say, what landowners need to hear. Like, we figured out that most people haven't had experiences with hunters before, so they don't know like what we're about. Yeah. They kind of have these stigmas in their mind of like a redneck that's gonna go drink beer on the property and trash the place or whatever. And
more than once.
You guys could have your own whole podcast and just conversations that you have.
There's so much to uncover.
Yeah,
so much.
But just figuring out like how to educate these people on what we do and why we do it was a huge part of kind of figuring out the permission thing. That kind of got us to the point where we're like, okay, we've kind of figured out like this urban stuff. We started killing some really big deer, got on the cover of magazines a few times, and then we got to the point where like, okay, we've got some crazy stories. Maybe we should start telling them, start showing them. So, Lee, I don't know if there's anything you want to fill in on that backstory, but before we get into the actual Seek One inception, but
no, I mean that pretty much covers it. There's so much more to unpack in that time frame.
Yeah.
And
we could talk for 4 hours about the
history. I mean, dude, we could talk for days about so many different things, but I would say one of the big things for me personally, Drew too, in that time frame, was that I didn't come from a hunting family. Drew said that, but I think something that I almost sort of pride myself on is that I learned all of this stuff from my own experiences, making mistakes, literally getting to the point of just like, I want to quit and not quitting. And I don't know. I guess I'm just proud of the fact that like, no one kind of handed this to us. Like we kind of took it upon ourselves, and like, it was, filled with that beginning time frame was just filled with so many heartbreaks because bow hunting is so tough.
Yeah.
And especially when you don't have someone kind of like guiding you. We made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I think the biggest thing I'm proud of is that we took those mistakes as learning experiences. And I finally feel like in the last several years, we've really kind of hit our stride with killing deer.
Mm-hmm. And still, it's like this has been a tough year so far.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's just so many things that have to fall into place to get it done. Like, the more and more I hunt, the more I realize how difficult bow hunting is.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's never going to get easier.
No, it's not.
And I think that's one of my big things. That's what I was telling one of the veterans here earlier that had that not much hunting experience. Is like, dude, you're going to have heartbreak. That's part of bow hunting.
More times than not, you're going to fail.
Yep. Whether it's, you screw up the shot or like it just doesn't fall in your way to even have that shot opportunity because, there's so many different things that can go wrong leading up to that moment. And so that was my big message to him. Anyone that's listening to this too, like if they're getting into it right now, like don't beat yourself up. Take every mistake as a learning experience and make yourself better from it. And you'll eventually turn that corner. It takes time, but bow hunting is something that just, it's not something that just like is ingrained in you. I think it's just a learned skill. And you have to have experience under your belt, making those mistakes and kind of bettering yourself.
Build
so
that confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no way to replicate that high pressure situation of having a mature animal in front of you that you chase forever. It doesn't matter how many times you shoot at your target.
I
in your
still
backyard.
struggle with it.
Oh, I
a lot.
Really struggle with like target panic on mature bucks.
That one I shot this year, I missed him at 14 yards, and then I killed him at 53 because I got a second
you got out of your system, and
I literally like when I said it on the podcast, like, people were probably like, is he, rookie? I didn't bend at the waist out of a tree. Like, I was in a saddle and I was just he's in my truck bed. I had it all in my head that everything was done. And I was like, as soon as I shot, I'm like, you idiot. Those things do happen. And, it's tough to understand what it's like under those pressure situations. And it's easy to see, like, say, guys like you that they see, YouTube and stuff where you're killing all these big deer and stuff, but they don't see all the, you show a lot of it, but you don't see all of the heartbreak that goes in it or all the time that's spent coming into it.
It's impossible to show that much. It's
impossible to be able to show it. Like this year, I've had a really good year, but 2 years leading up to this, like the last couple of years, I struggled bad. Like I spent all my vacation hunting and I couldn't kill a deer with my bow that I wanted to, and I just felt like I was just a failure. I'm like, is this like everything I thought I know is just out the window?
It'll humble you. Yeah, it'll humble you real quick.
Yeah, it does.
And I think I would also say, if you're a new bow hunter out there and you're wanting to get into it, like, don't try to jump right into killing the biggest buck you can. Like, if a doe comes in,
just kill stuff.
Yeah, shoot some does. Like get some stuff under your belt. Get that, like, that oozing confidence is what kills deer. And I didn't have that until the last several years. And now I feel like any deer that is 50 yards or less is dead. And it's that oozing confidence that is just like, it almost puts me in like a zen. I shoot a pile of does every year. I've probably killed in the last 3 years, like 25 deer or so.
Wow.
And I've the last 3 years, I've gone 25 for 25. I say that, and I could easily screw up the next one. But my point is that, like, once you start having more experience, you're having success, even if it's with a doe or, like, just getting some of that experience under your belt, having a few successful hunts, like, it's going to help prepare you for when that, like, deer of a lifetime comes in front of you. That was one of the hardest things for us personally, was like, we were screwing up on these huge deer.
Yeah.
And it was just like, just amplified the heartbreak. Yeah. Dude, it was devastating. And we just wanted it so bad, and it just, like, never came easy. Like, I don't think bow hunting comes easy to anybody.
Well, when you're hunting in areas where there's these giant deer, it's like, especially when you first start out like we did, like, it's really hard to shoot the first 120-inch deer that you see when there's a 170-inch deer, 160-inch deer in the area. Yeah. And so you're like the second buck I killed was 173 inches. And so I didn't have, it's my own fault, but, like, I should have shot 30 deer before I was kind of trying to go after the caliber deer like that.
And that's such a good point about just shooting deer, because, like, I know that's something that I've realized that I need to do more of is shooting does, because, like, and I always tell myself, actually, my girlfriend was asking me this question, because she's not a hunter, but she was asking me, she's like, why? She's like, you don't really ever shoot does, and I'm like, well, there's not that many in the area, and I always have these things, but I'm like, honestly, if I shot more does, like, it gets you in that's the only time you can replicate that actual real life experience, because I can shoot every day in my yard or in my basement or wherever you want to do, and there's
so much more to it.
So much more
than being accurate.
Knowing when to shoot, like, waiting for the right angle,
when to draw,
knowing when to stop the deer,
reading a deer's behavior,
there's so much to it.
Yeah.
And the more that we hunt, the more encounters that we have, like, the more I'm realizing how much weight is in that last 10 seconds of the hunt.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that can go wrong.
Yeah, we talked about that with elk hunting yesterday. Like, that it's the same deal.
Yeah. But kind of, I guess, getting back on track to the background for us, like, that was kind of the beginning phase. And then, like Drew said, we kind of got to that place where we were like, we should tell some of these stories. We went to ATA after a few years of filming hunts, and the urban stuff was, like, not, I don't want to say not 100% accepted was the right word, but it was just new. I think people didn't really.
Wow.
You did that on purpose. That was amazing.
That's crispy.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I don't think people really, just for the listeners at home, he's drinking a White Claw, tangerine flavored. It's not a Budweiser. It's a White Claw.
Yeah, I thought it was mango.
Anyway, moving on.
Whatever.
So, I think that it wasn't like, it was just new. I think people didn't really know what to think about it. We were kind of the first ones to put it out there. And it was tough going for us, like, kind of stepping into the space. I mean, we didn't really like set out with the ambition of like, we want to be in the hunting industry. It's just like we love doing it. It kind of just was trending that way, and we kind of ran with it. We went to ATA, this is probably 3 years ago. I think we had $150 left in our bank account, and we were like, we got to line up some sponsors because this ain't working. Like, you know, we can't do this anymore.
So were you guys doing this full time already? Like,
no.
Okay.
No, we both had full-time jobs,
Okay.
like just straight grinding.
Drew was working at a home builder with a home builder and then pulling all-nighters, like banging out episodes for us when we were doing some stuff for Mossy Oak.
We lived together at the time with another college buddy of ours. If you ever see me with my hood pulled up, like, and I'm on the computer, don't talk to me because that's when I'm in the editing zone, and I will sit there for freaking 10 hours straight if it takes until 4 a.m.
So
that's what it takes. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of effort that went into it it's unfathomable. But I don't even know if I said that word right. Words are tough for me. But anyway, so we go to ATA and we have like 150
words.
I'm not going to linger there.
We're
moving
precision.
on. So anyways, we go to ATA and it's like we have $150. Like, hey, we got to line up some stuff or else this is done. We didn't line up. I was going to cuss. I'm not going to. We didn't line anything up.
Yeah.
And
you can cuss, by the way. It's
okay,
fine.
cool. Well, we didn't line up anything. And it was like, okay, well, we're done here. And so we go back home. Or actually, no, we burned our last $150 at like a bar. We got like a nice dinner and like got a few drinks. And we're like, yeah, what's done is done. And then we come back and I don't know, we just like, it was more of a calling to us, I think. Like we just kept getting pulled back into it. And there's a huge faith side to all of that for Drew and I personally. And there were so many times we were like, it made sense to stop, just stop. And we, started the YouTube thing out, and like our first video we did on YouTube was a total disaster. We crashed our really expensive drone, and we didn't have insurance or anything like that, so it was total loss. And then about 5 minutes later, we splashed our camera, our nice expensive Sony camera from a tripod. Yeah, it fell off the back of the boat, plunged in, like tanked in the water. It was like in a matter of 5 minutes, it's like we just lost everything. This is not going. And that video got like 5,000 views, and it was just like, yeah, we should probably quit. Yeah. You know how we thought about not quitting, and we probably should just quit.
Yeah, now it's time.
But anyways, I don't know, we kept rolling with it, and when we started to focus on our own brand, on our own channels, and stop kind of like trying to please others, it really just took off for us. And there was that wave of, those original YouTube hunting channels that just got really popular, and we were fortunate enough to be in that. But I think there was it's just the perfect storm of a lot of things. I think people couldn't believe the deer we were killing and where we were killing them. Drew was telling the stories in a way that was just like really showing the emotion and capturing like how it really, just the rawness of it. And I think people just like really gravitated to it. And I think what we're doing is not out of reach. It's not like we're at some paid outfitter, like, hey, we're showing up, maybe this deer will walk out, like, and that's fine to do. Like, I'm not bashing that, but I think it was just relatable that like anybody out there can go knock on a door wherever you live in this country and get permission from someone that has 5 acres, 1,000 acres, whatever. What we were doing was not unachievable. These deer we were hunting, anybody could go hunt. They were accessible by anybody if you put in the time to go knock on doors, do the scouting, find all these deer and stuff. So it was kind of the perfect storm of a lot of things that all kind of came together to just kind of, put us to where we are.
What's interesting is, one, I remember when I first found your guys' YouTube video. I think one of my buddies, I hunted the suburbs in college with one of my college roommates around Pittsburgh, and he'd killed some big deer in some of these areas, and he's like, you gotta check out this video. These guys are like, just this guy, killing. I think you only had like a few, or maybe, I don't know if I only saw a few videos or whatever, but I was like, holy cow, like this is, and then it felt like, like that you guys had just blown up from there. Yeah. But what's interesting is, being someone that's kind of in the space and a little bit different, but in that space is you see the people that do well, when they do it well, it looks like an overnight success, but that's not what it is. You know what I mean? Not even close.
So much led up to
and you know, like when you're talking about you with your hood up, sitting there editing, and then you know trying to figure out these and just being obsessed with. That's what makes it look easy.
It's kind of funny, like you said, like it happened really fast for us.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, like it happened so fast for us. Drew and I didn't even realize that we were kind of in the eyes of everybody in the industry. That like all eyes were on us to a certain extent, and other channel, like a lot of other channels. But like we just grew so fast, we didn't really realize kind of the weight that carries with it too. You know, we were just kind of having fun, like, and you have to be politically correct and stuff, and like there's a responsibility on us to paint hunting in the right light, and we made mistakes kind of on the way figuring that out. But it happened so fast for us. It's kind of funny, like, you know, a buddy of ours, I'm not gonna say his name, kind of insinuated a little bit. He was like, yeah, you know, I know there's like some channels out there that, you know, are buying subscribers, you know, from like overseas, because like, you know, how's a channel grow that fast? And I'm like,
a guy that's been trying to do the same thing
yeah,
for years
and I was like,
us.
I literally had no idea that you could even do that. So it's just kind of funny, like it happened really fast and it took off, and like, you know, we couldn't believe it. The people around us were, you know, still like couldn't really believe it either. It just kind of exploded.
On the contrary to that, like, and we were just talking about before we started recording, people that are trying to start podcasts, and you said like, if you don't have a specific niche, it's almost too saturated. Just jump into it and kind of do the same thing everyone else is doing. Like, there were years and years of us figuring out how to hunt and kill these big urban deer, and that in itself, like, that was very difficult.
And that should be put in the timeline. You know, it looks like okay, your YouTube channel might have grown in 3 years. You said you guys have been doing that, which sounds like wow, that's overnight.
But before that, we figured this other thing out that like was a niche thing and not many people had figured out.
Yeah,
and so it's if you're an aspiring creator, you want to be on YouTube, like, you can't just jump into it and start a YouTube channel and then figure out like, okay, what's my content going to be? We spent 7-8 years perfecting the niche side of our hunting before we were like, okay, let's start filming these stories. So, I mean, that's a huge part of it that like we often overlook. Like, we look back to the last 4 years of actually creating videos and getting partnerships and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, well, hold on a second, like, we've been doing this for 16 years.
Yeah Exactly.
There's a lot that's gone into this.
For sure.
No, it's true, and one of the things, and I'm obviously kind of skipping some steps here, but like it seems like now, well, it doesn't seem like it is now, becoming even harder for creators like you guys and anybody else that's doing it with the whole censorship. I mean, you guys were at the front of YouTube's kind of, I don't even know how I want to put it, but like,
boom.
Yeah, like just hit. You guys got hit pretty hard with the whole YouTube censorship.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That part.
That's the lane you were going down.
Yeah, I was going down that spot of it. I was kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but so do you want to describe that a little bit and kind of tell? I had Brad Luttrell from Go Wild on. He was talking about it. He does a lot of research on these on YouTube and all these different things, but I know you guys were the first ones I saw that had that happen to them. Yeah, where you were demonetized.
What's crazy? I was listening to a Rogan podcast a couple weeks ago. It was his most recent one with Steve Rinella, and I think Rogan brought it up. He was like, he asked Rinella if he had heard of like these hunting channels that have been recently censored, and I think he was indirectly talking about us and maybe one other channel that got demonetized randomly.
Man, if Joe Rogan would have name dropped us.
I mean, retirement immediately, right?
Yeah. Opportunity. Joe, if you hear this.
Yeah, he listens to this on.
But yeah, no, I mean, Lee was more on kind of the front lines of the whole demonetization thing, but it just totally came out of the blue. Like, one day we logged into the account, and I think Lee was the first one that saw it, but it just said that we had zero revenue over the last like couple of days.
Literally no warning.
No emails, no notifications, nothing.
And we had never had any videos like demonetized before that. I mean, maybe for like a song copyright issue, but never for like, graphic content or anything like that. It was like we had pretty much a clean record. Most other channels have had those, red flags, demonetized on individual videos, but ours clean record. And then at the snap of a finger, it was like entire channel gone. And from our business, like we rely on ad revenue from YouTube to run our business and be able to do this full time. So like that's not a lighthearted, like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
For us. And essentially what it was they had made some updated guidelines, and I don't think they even really know who did it, but these people that are in charge of kind of like going through all this stuff and enforcing these guidelines or whatever, I think took it to kind of extreme measures. And to be honest with you, I think it's just how YouTube is, their mindset on hunting, and just kind of their position of politically, their stance on a lot of things. It's not favorable to the outdoor industry. And they kind of, these people, whoever it was within YouTube, like just saw our channel and was like, oh, this, breaks all these guidelines that we've just incorporated. Boom, done. And then it happened to several other channels. And so, we're still trying to figure that out. We honestly don't have it 100% figured out, because there are still guidelines out there that clearly state like no processing of an animal, like no suffering of an animal whatsoever.
It says in a roundabout way, it says you can't show the kill shot.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing about the whole thing was we got demonetized, no communication from YouTube. We posted about it on our Instagram, stirred up the whole bunch of comments and stuff. The troops rallied behind us and were like, screw YouTube. Like, they can't just censor whatever content they don't believe in. Like, they can't just, be swayed by these corporations and political beliefs and stuff. And so YouTube actually, some guy from the monetization department from YouTube reached out to a buddy of ours that has another larger channel than ours, and was like, hey, I saw what's going on with you and Seek One. Just wanted to let you know, this was a mistake. I'm looking into it. I'm going to try to get it resolved. So maybe a week later, we log in, channel's monetized again, everything's back to normal. But
he said, he's like outdoor content brings YouTube tons and tons of revenue. Like, you guys are a huge asset to YouTube, but I still feel like stuff is still hanging in the balance of which way is this going to go?
The weird thing is these community guidelines are posted for everyone to see on Google. I don't know, on YouTube's whatever website and Google's website, since Google owns YouTube. And it very clearly says the kill shot has to be indiscernible, and you cannot show the processing of the animal for the meat aspect or for the trophy aspect. And there was a bunch of other stuff that was into that. That's not a mistake. That doesn't get published on accident. No. And so my opinion is, this guy, and I don't know this guy personally, I didn't talk to him, so I don't want to, put words in his mouth, but to me, it sounds like they're backpedaling once they saw kind of the outrage of our following and this other guy's following, and they're buying time to figure out all right, talking to the other, coworkers at YouTube, let's figure something out here, because we don't want to completely lose the hunting community. Yeah. But I think it's inevitable that we go back to all of hunting content getting censored in one way or another.
Yeah, and it's so tough. So Brad explained it well, to the point that I didn't understand. Of okay, say for some reason you guys were able to find a different way to make money on it, and you put it out there without ads. You turned off the monetization thing on YouTube. It doesn't. YouTube's not going to show that to as many people,
right? Because that's the biggest issue.
The biggest, that's the thing that I didn't understand that, and until he told me that. But he's like, so basically, because YouTube makes money obviously off those ads, so when you have that turned on, they want it to go out to more people because they're getting that ad revenue in, and then they're paying that portion out to you guys, and it's so your channel, say you were to get 300,000 views on this thing, it might get half of that or less, if it's not.
Yeah, no, a lot less.
Yeah, a lot.
I mean, we're talking to a channel that's much, much larger than ours. It's a fishing channel that's had that exact issue in the last few months. He went from having 500,000 to 1 million views, on some videos, to 10 to 20,000.
Wow.
And the ad revenue is a big part of it, especially because I mean we're still like in an infancy stage. Like we need that revenue to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we can figure out other ways to generate revenue, whether it's through subscription, exclusive content, merch, whatever else, sponsorships. But if YouTube starts saying like, I'm not even going to alert your subscribers that you just posted this video, and I'm definitely not going to show it to new viewers that aren't subscribed. That crushes us. That's where the problem is.
Yeah.
And so what we're kind of currently going through is figuring out like, okay, we have no clue what YouTube's going to do. There's no way for us to know what they're going to do. So we need to start putting something into place where we can own that audience and move them over to a platform that we have control of.
Yeah.
And we don't know what that looks like yet, but we're starting to kind of dive into
Randy
that.
Newberg just built his own platform sort of deal, which the hard part about that is like you have to have like a very good base to begin with, and hopefully if they go over, it's harder to get new people when that comes.
Oh yeah, you're not going to get any new people.
Yeah, because YouTube has that reach, and it's, the number 2 search engine behind Google. Mm-hmm. So, and it just it's not as cut and dry.
It's a tricky situation.
Yeah,
for sure. YouTube is never going to be duplicated, in my opinion.
Yeah,
as far as the amount of audience on it. And kind of in the same vein, like we're trying to get ahead of this thing, so we don't want YouTube to all of a sudden be like, "All right, hunting content's done. Sorry, guys, like your channel's gone, or we're not showing your videos to anybody." But we also don't like if that happens, we don't want all these different hunting channels to go separate directions and spread out the audience and pull them in all different ways, and they have to go to a paid subscription model to 15 different channels that they want to watch. So it's like we gotta band together as a hunting community and as creators and figure out like what is the next step.
Yeah.
What's the temporary solution and what's the permanent solution in case YouTube does say screw you guys.
Yeah.
So it's tricky.
It is. It definitely is.
I've got 2 things. I feel like we're
wrapping up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got 2 things.
All right.
First one's simple. I would like to encourage everybody out there to go knock on a door. There's only a 1 in 10,000 chance you'll get shot.
I like those odds. Those are good odds.
Second thing, I have a question.
Yeah.
It's going to tell me everything I need to know about you.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with hunting.
Yeah. So let's go ahead.
Right. Would you rather... Would you rather take a bare-fisted Mike Tyson punch to the face?
Yeah.
Maybe he uppercuts you. Maybe he, I don't know, punches you in the temple, whatever. Unpredictable. Mike Tyson in his prime, not as he is.
Yeah.
Or would you rather take a Tiger Woods driver shaft, so long shaft, but a sand wedge head, full swing to the shin? Would you rather take a barefooted Mike Tyson punch to the face or Tiger Woods taking a sand wedge and hitting you in the shin as hard as he possibly can?
Mike Tyson punch to the face.
You are an idiot. That's the worst answer ever. You told me everything I need to know about you.
I don't know anything about golfing, so how do you know what a sand wedge is?
The people that give me that answer, I don't understand. I will never see eye to eye with you ever on this. I don't understand.
It's metal.
It's idiotic. What are you talking? You're going to take a bare-fisted Mike Tyson punch to the face.
Yeah.
You would die.
I'm quick.
There's like a no.
No, you gotta take it, right?
You have to take it.
You don't have a mustache, so how the hell
That's
do you
true.
understand?
That's
He
very
may uppercut
true.
you in the chin.
No, he won't.
Dude,
So much cushioning though with
Does
that
he-
mustache.
here's the all right. Best case scenario: severe brain damage for the rest of your life. That's best case scenario.
I've been hit before.
Not by Mike Tyson with a bare fist in his prime. If he uppercuts you, I think that your skull detaches from your spine and you die.
Do we just end it there?
And I think if he punches you in the I think you die too. I mean, maybe he fractured your skull. You take a shot to the shin, yeah, it's going to hurt. Maybe you lose your leg, but you're alive. You can remember your name the next day.
That's one punch.
It's getting hit by a car one time.
No, it's not the same.
If it only takes one thing to kill you. Best case scenario, severe brain damage for the rest of your life. And this podcast has a whole different vibe after that.
Wait a minute. You know.
I just wanted to know. I was curious. I'm
thinking about that the entire time that we've been talking about hunting.
Now we're not friends, and no one's ever going to hear this. No, honestly, you guys definitely need to have your own podcast. Lee has a good job of hosting. He kind of he has a good way of taking control and running directions with some of these things. So
another question.
Oh God.
Yeah, you have permission to ask it.
Do you want me to ask it?
Yeah.
You seen the movie Titanic?
Yeah.
All right. At the end of the movie, you have Jack and you got Rose. They're trying to get on this table, right? This floating table.
Yeah.
Do you think there's room enough for the both of them, or do you think that that Rose is being selfish and kicked Jack off? Do you think Jack should have lived?
No.
Thank you. You just saved our friendship with that.
No.
So you're saying they both couldn't have fit on the table?
No.
Okay. Okay. We're good. I agree with you.
Are we friends again?
We're friends again.
Can we hang out?
Yeah, we can hang out.
All right. I'll draw
the people who think they could have both fit on that table is so stupid to me. So dumb. I don't want to be friends with.
When was the last time you watched Titanic?
Well, I got into an argument.
It took me a minute to remember.
It's been like 15 years.
I got into a heated argument about this at a wedding like a month ago, and I had to go back and rewatch the movie just to make sure I was correct in my opinion.
All 4 hours of it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I did watch the whole movie.
Yeah, these guys work real hard on sequence. No, anyways, thank you guys for coming on, and everyone go check out Sequan, YouTube, Instagram. What else can people check out?
Oh God,
what's that?
I'm just kidding.
I'm done with you. What else can people check out? Anything else that you want to mention? You guys got an online course out there?
Yeah, just did a master class, doing a little a deep dive into every single detail of what we do. So something we've kept extremely close to our chest is the whole permission getting process, what we say. So we did a course on that and literally everything else. The Venison Project we're working on right now. Extremely similar to Hunters for the Hungry, if you guys are familiar with that. Just trying to put a purpose behind what we're doing. There's so much need for food, and there's so many homeless in these cities that we're hunting. We decided to create something similar to Hunters for the Hungry, but keep it faith-based. So kind of launching that this year. Other than that, I think that's it. We got a lot of irons in the fire right now, but
yeah, we do.
I think we're a little early before we start talking about that stuff. So
all right.
Maybe next time.
Next
year's vet.
I don't know if Drew, you might be able to come back on.
Yeah. Lee's probably kicked off Sequan at this point, but we got an open spot.
Podcast. I just got kicked out of Sequan and this podcast. You gonna get a nipple for your next White Claw?
You might want to. I'm done with you. No, thank you guys for coming on. I really do appreciate it, and we'll enjoy the guys are starting to come back in here at camp. So
I hope someone killed something. Yeah. With all these mustaches,
like it.
All these Rutstaches running around, there's got to be something on the ground.
If not, I'm getting out of here quick. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.